Somebody asked me if I think Octopus Pie has an infamous moment. You mean like a moment people hate? You're gonna get me to talk about that on the stream?
Infamous moments.
Yeah. The shitty webcomic moment of Octopus Pie is without a doubt the one I drew right after Barack Obama won the presidency. I drew a comic where everyone's happy because Barack Obama is going to be president. And even though the comic does expresses skepticism that Obama's probably not going to be any better than any other president, it is incredibly hopeful and celebratory of Barack Obama. Definitely the worst comic I ever made in that series. Yeah, unrivaled. Very bad. And I have never deleted it because I'm not a coward. If you didn't feel that way about Barack Obama when he won the election in 2012, God bless you for your perfect politics, I guess. I mean, look, I will, like, I'm talking specifically about people who might, for instance, have a critique of him from the left. I don't want to hear anything else. But, yeah, embarrassing in hindsight, definitely. Other things about the comic, I don't think there's anything else that is universally cringe like that. I cringe at a bit of it because I drew it, but that's not for other people to know about. Doesn't the robot murder the girlfriend and Tim goes into an alternate timeline or something? Yes, we had just gone through 8 years of Bush. I'm not gonna start talking about the presidents. I'm not going to be suckered into that one again.
I'm dead.
But yes, absolutely. I had a bad president and I drew a bad comic. Things were bad. Okay, so infamous doesn't have to necessarily mean cringe. It could also be discourse generating. I mean, Octopus Pie exposed a lot of people to the Shags. A lot of people heard about the Shags in Octopus Pie and then found out later on that the Shags was a real band.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like... I mean, I'm very glad to know that more people discovered the Shags through my efforts.
I mean, I know about the Shags because of you.
I may have done quite a bit for the Shags' audience, really. I love the Shags. They're so beautiful. I love them. I really do. I come back to them every couple of years. Oh yes, and I was very into Captain Beefheart during the early years of Octopus Pie. I put that trout mask replica shit all over my backgrounds and names and jokes and shit. Just like Dag out blues, like just his screaming voice.
Oh my god, yeah, I've been listening to him a lot lately. This great train that houses people's thoughts, their very souls and belongings.
Oh man, like, okay, so Beefheart on his own is obviously brilliant, but Beefheart and Zappa together doing like a live show, we listened to that shit so much. In fact, I named Hannah's first bong, well, the only bong that I named in Octopus Pie. We never saw her name a bong ever again, but I called it Bongo Fury because of that album, because I love it so much. Well, I did. I don't know. I haven't listened to it in a long time. I have love in my heart for it. Oh yes, when I shifted from digital to traditional, some people had a problem with that. I remember that.
Oh shit, a controversy.
Oh yeah. Well, because like, all right, so I was drawing Octopus Pie for like, I want to say a year. When did I switch? Might have been a year, two tops. But I was like, I think between work and this, I'm going down a bad path with this digital art. I don't really like the way I draw anymore, and I'm ashamed that that as a cartoonist I never learned how to use a brush, and I think I need to learn how to ink. I think I actually need to learn. I can't lean on Manga Studio for the rest of my fucking life. And I was using like smoothing shit to make it in Manga Studio, so it looked really, really smooth. But the drawings underneath looked bad because of like the smooth line. The way I was kind of using digital tools to make my art. I didn't like the way it looked. And I knew that if I switched to ink on paper, it was going to look like shit for a while. But I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll learn fast. And I just like jumped into it. And it did really look bad for a couple of years. Like, I understand why people weren't happy about the change. But I needed to do, oh my God, this merry-go-round is so fucking great. I needed to get better. I needed to get better at drawing. It was like my last chance to get better at drawing. You know, like you lose the drive to really hone that after a while. I mean, God, I'd love to get better at drawing now, but I don't have time anymore. But then I had a little time. So I just practiced drawing. I practiced inking until I had it exactly the way I wanted it. And now that's the only way I do it. It was part of figuring out a process that would become like the perfect process. Sorry, you don't have to look at me while I ramble on about this shit to you. Oh yes, you're right. The most commented page of Octopus Pie, and I feel like this was kind of the time period that we were in at the time, was about whether Eve was right to throw a drink in Park's face or not, and whether Park was enough of an asshole to deserve having a drink thrown in his face, and whether that was a deranged act that Eve did, as if any of this analysis does anything to clarify whether it's funny that she threw the drink in his face or not. But I think, at the time, people were very invested. It was like nearing the end of the strip, and people were very invested in the story of these characters. And I think there was also like a lot of, in general, a lot of discourse around the morality of what characters were doing, and whether the characters were right to do those things or not. And there was also like a little bit of a question of like, what is the author trying to say by like depicting characters who are like bad in this way or good in this way? And I wasn't trying to like state the morality of any aspect of it. I was just trying to set the scene. So I didn't really have anything to say about all that. I like in hindsight, it's cool in hindsight that people cared so much about those characters that they were talking about them like real people. It's like reading an advice column, You feel like, okay, well, what this person needs to do is obviously this. Yeah, that one was. You're right. It was hotly debated. There were a lot of people who thought Park was like an irredeemable character, which that implies that like redemption is like is like part of like the arc of a character in something, that like everything comes back to the moral judgment placed on that character. Whether he deserved to not be the one for Eve or not. And you know, nobody will ever be good enough for her, right? So the people who loved the comic were like, how dare he try to bulldoze her life like that after all he did to her? And you know, then I mean, the story then itself interrogates whether it was fair for her to do that. So I feel like I examined it in my own way, and that was the way I was interested in doing it. So there were two examinations going on. Yeah, you're still in like this quiet place with the ghosts.
Did you play this when it was like on display at Toys R Us?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I definitely played it in stores.
They only let you get like to like Bob on Battlefield, and then it like boots you out and you have to let the next person play.
Oh, right. There was like a pre-programmed version of it. It was like a demo version, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like desperately hungry for more of this game when you play. Right. Park's irredeemable because he said something mean when he walked out. He said he was an asshole on his way out. Yes, but that's not the end of his story just because he left the stage. We're still doing a post-mortem on that as the story goes on. And I'm so sorry for talking about this, guys. I never get to talk about why I made all these choices in Octopus Pie, and even now, like, I don't really know exactly why because I was a different age when I wrote it. But the story goes on to then interrogate Eve about like the sort of attachment she forms to people, and you know, whether her account of the whole thing was even accurate or fair. So it was about her. It wasn't about whether he was a good guy or not. He was an unknowable guy to her, you know, like he couldn't be the one, and therefore he would never give 100% of himself to her. So of course he's the asshole for that, because he had another life. He had a whole nother life, and that was impossible for Eve to accept. Like, you know, she built up something completely different about him, that, you know, she was gonna like spend her life with him, and she thought like she had all that laid out in front of her. But then like when she sees him, she's disappointed to find out that he intends to just, you know, go back where he came from, and he barely even tried to see her on this trip. She realizes that he's not going to, like, you know, take her back to Chicago with him. Like what the fuck does she think is gonna happen? And she can't deal with that, and that's the reason she throws a drink in his face. And then, you know, you could argue that like he shouldn't have slept with her if he thought she felt this way, but then, like, did he know she felt this way? Like, he's totally oblivious to how she feels. Her life is not a part of his life anymore. So how the fuck does he know? He wanted to see her, and he thought, you know, maybe they're both over it, and like, who cares? And you know, maybe he should have read the scenario a little bit better. But like, his obliviousness is really what hurts. That's what hurts her fucking feelings so much, is that he doesn't care. Not that he came to try and like fuck with her in some way. So she's crying over that, and the only thing she can take it out on is him, because he's the reason she's here. He didn't have to fucking call. He didn't have to see her if he didn't want to like be in a relationship with her again. And that's how she sees it. But like, to him, she was just one of the many spots he hit on his trip. He was visiting a lot of friends, and he decided to squeeze her in where he could. It's the other way around, really, but he didn't make a lot of time for her. No more than he made for anybody else. And it seems he made more time for other people than her. But he doesn't owe her that time just because they used to be together. And, we don't know what their conversation was like when he called. Maybe she told him everything was cool. We're not here to find out what Park was thinking. What we're here to find out is that Eve has her own fucking idea of what Park was thinking. And Greg has a totally different idea, which he expresses to her, and she gets very mad. And that, when we get out of relationships, we don't really heal from them until we take into account, like, the story that we told about them. What we were so certain we knew about them. But we didn't know shit about them because they were just somebody we dated when we were young. And now they're a stranger. And that hurts. And at some point, you have to accept your own role in all that. And allow it to stop hurting. I'm sorry, there's so many people in the chat asking me questions about this right now. I'm happy to answer them as Joe plays Mario 64, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
He's letting me do it. Thank you, Joe. Can I talk about why Merrick faded out of the strip as it went on? Well, he wasn't in a relationship with Hannah anymore. And Hannah is the character. I'm sorry. Merrick is a supporting character. Sorry.
May I comment?
Sure.
Well, people want every character to be like a role model, I guess. Not, that's not necessarily, like, you just need to relate to them, like, a feeling a character has.
I mean, people kind of conflate likability with relatability.
Yeah.
They consider a likable character someone who's never done anything that they don't want to feel like they can relate to. Like, they want to like somebody who's never done anything bad because then they can pretend that that's who they relate to. But a character who's done something bad is probably a lot more like you, and maybe that's why you don't like them. Maybe that's why they're not likable.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think Park isn't a bad person, but he was intent playing up his maturity because he desires to show others he has it together. That's why I always thought the failed law firm interview cut so deep, because he felt very helpless, maybe even childish in that situation. Well, of course. And Park is a vulnerable character, and you do see it. You see him trying to do that, but you see a lot of them trying to do that. You see our little heroes trying to do that too. It's something that, like, Hannah accuses Marigold of doing, of, like, pretending to be, like, completely something that she's not. And Hannah knows how stupid and vulnerable she is. And meanwhile, Hannah's just projecting what she's fucking upset about in her own life. And they're all just trying to outwardly project somebody who's got it together and somebody who, like, has it all figured out and shit. But they're all just flailing at some point in the story. All of them are totally not in any way, not in any way sure what the fuck they're doing. Yeah, so, I made an attempt to make Park look vulnerable like they all were. And, maybe he does shitty things because of that vulnerability. So do they all. I just think because Park was not he was not on the winning team. We didn't follow him. And he was a bad ex. Unlike Merrick, he's such a noble ex. Well, no, he kind of pulls a bad ex move at the party at the end, doesn't he? But for the most part, a pretty cool ex. Not somebody that, they can still talk. The two of them can still talk. But, when you have an ex that you can't talk to, something you'll never forget went down. At least somebody who is of any importance. You're gonna hold a little piece of them. The ones where some major heartbreak went down. Oh, the eye reveal. Thank you. I've done characters with shrouded eyes twice now. I feel like I've done everything I possibly can with it. This creature is adorable. Look how happy he is. Why didn't they hook up before COVID? Why didn't Hannah and Larry find each other before COVID? I think what I was trying to suggest in the story before it ended was that she could not possibly get a hold on this guy. Like, it would drive her crazy, and they were not ready for each other. And he still drives her crazy, but it's okay now. Shit changes. COVID changed everything. I really did want that story to take what I saw as the consequences of living in the world of COVID, and capture it, because I've mostly forgotten it myself. I've forgotten a lot of it, and really capture, just like, I don't know, how everything kind of like felt like there was like a little bit of a dead end in front of it. There's a wall in front of everything, in front of your plans, and in front of your hopes. And I wanted to show some characters who were perhaps, looking forward to a baby, but constantly thinking about doom. And characters who were terrified of the other one dying. Characters who'd gotten married and were terrified of the other one dying. And people who had become completely isolated, completely alienated from their world, partly by COVID and partly by other factors in life. And there's a few of those in that story. They're all kind of alienated from their world. They miss the touch of one another so much that maybe some of the things that seemed like they were keeping them apart before are not as important as they were, and those things eventually will be overcome, and they're all going to see each other again someday. I didn't know if that was true when I finished that story, though. The vaccine was coming, though. And life did change when the vaccine came. I think I was writing from the perspective of somebody personally who was afraid that exciting shit would never happen again. That I just like never stay up late at like a spontaneous hangout again. And, I would never have like nights that just like went on endlessly. And I mean, part of that is just like being my age. And, yeah. All these characters in my comics were similarly feeling alienated between COVID and the fact that they were getting older and just like, moving apart for whatever reasons. You didn't think Marigold and Jane's marriage would last through this latest story. They almost didn't make it, yeah. Oh, but what if I got to draw a divorce? I've never done that before. I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there are a lot of graphic novels that involve divorce. And they're mostly pretty sad. I think I could do it though. I think I could make a really good divorce story. The question is whether Marigold and Jane should get the axe. I think I'm gonna decide it right now, actually. What do you think? Should they get divorced? I'm thinking about it. Like, I could do a lot with that. I can make it funny. Okay. Our Marigold divorce arc would require a Kickstarter for how intense it would be. Yes. Okay. I'm not going to do that for a few more years. She's not going to get divorced until her 40s. Oh, and what a divorce it'll be. Oh, I'm thinking about it now. If they got divorced, the readers would start claiming custody over one of them, or like which one of the characters has custody of them, so that they don't disappear from the comic. Right? Like, the readers are going to be like, all right, if they're divorced though, which one becomes the more main character and which one fades away?
So basically, like, who dies?
Who basically dies, as far as we're concerned. Maybe we'll see her again, like, sometime down the line. She won't be doing great.
Just written out of the show.
Written out of the show. It would be, look. Yeah, it would be a bloodbath. But that might be what that might be what I crave in my 40s, to write a story like that. I don't know. Who knows? And maybe that's what other people are going to want to read about, is a fucking divorce. It would be strange if Marigold faded away and Jane stays. I feel like I'd really have to make the case for that. I'm sorry to say. Marigold is a more main character than Jane. But, like, if I find something else to do with Jane, maybe I can put her somewhere else. But that shit always sucks in sitcoms, and, well, does it suck? I don't know. I don't care. They do that in Girls all the time. The characters break up, and then they just stay in the plot for some reason. Like, they kept Ray around after he broke up with Shoshana for, like, 3 seasons. So, look, it's not out of the question. Oh my god, yes, Marigold eats another brown-out biscuit, but it would be some, like, it would be like some TikTok version of that, right? Like, whatever the current solution to a problem of, like, being sad about your breakup is, for, like, woo-woo TikTok world, would be what she does, right? She'd drink the pink sauce or whatever the hell, to forget about Jane forever. But then they would still be tied together somehow. They would be, they would have a baby. They would have a child together. Well, this child at this point would be like 9 years old. So Jane would still be a character. So, like, look, their marriage is safe, right?
Well, I was wondering if they would, like, be the type of people who would, like, get divorced and then married again.
Oh man, okay. Has that happened in a sitcom? I'm sure it has, right? Characters got divorced and married again. Did Larry David marry Cheryl again?
Did they get divorced?
They got divorced, yeah.
Oh, I have no idea.
Sound off if that's ever happened. Because look, then there's still a chance, right? They get divorced, and look, Jane has to stay in the picture because they have a child. Unless Jane's done something really bad, and the fans refuse to forgive her forever.
I mean, okay. I think killing off one of the characters is really funny, but I think maybe only joke about it, sort of.
Well, the only character I could kill is Eve. Like, none of the other characters, you can't be violent to the other characters. It's mean.
Yeah.
Like, if Marigold fell on a bed of spikes, that would be so sad.
Oh, I don't mean like that. I mean like they're the one broken up with, and it's like goodbye. You're out of the plot.
Right. You've been kicked out of the plot. Well,
Yeah, like
look, it has happened before.
it's like Survivor. You're getting kicked off.
Well, yeah. I mean, some characters are shown the door. Okay, I did. The last story I did was about Puget Sean's wedding, and he's like a fairly minor part of the friend group.
Yeah.
And that's me saying goodbye, Sean. No more of you now.
His wedding, so he's moved on from friends.
He's moved on from friends, and he just has a wife now, and he loves her. And his friends are like, get out of here, you big fucking asshole. We hate ya. Just kidding. No, we hate ya. And that's just like, all right, no more Sean. You don't carry Puget Sean through your entire life.
Yeah.
You're lucky if you carry a few people through your entire life, right? So look, the core group has to remain small. But maybe people come and go. Somebody did say to me like a few weeks ago, or maybe months ago, it might have been right after I posted a new story, that they looked forward to the episode about Eve's funeral.
Is that going to be the end of the comic or no?
I have no idea. I have no idea what I'm going to feel like drawing when I'm ready to die. I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to draw.
Yeah.
And I have the feeling that whatever it is would seem absolutely insane to me now. But that's good. That's good because it means I'm going to evolve. Greg makes one last return to be the donor for Marigold's baby. No way. No way. They don't want that guy to come. Absolutely not. We know that though, right? No. Keep a draft locked in a desk drawer. Look, it's all in here. Okay. You're so sweet for being interested in Octopus Pie, even though you've never read it before. And I've been talking about it for, what, half an hour at this point? Maybe way more, maybe 2 hours.